of the Tableau Public Tug, where we are talking about all things IronViz, qualifiers specifically. So if you're not familiar with IronViz, it is one of the main events at Tableau Conference each year. It's a competition where 3 contestants are all given the same data set and asked to create a viz in Tableau that showcases analysis, design, and storytelling. And contestants are given just 20 minutes to build that viz live in front of everyone on the main stage at TC. So in order to make it to the stage of the conference, folks from all across the data fam participate in IronViz qualifiers, which typically take place next month in October. The qualifiers are a month long. They have a broad theme that your viz needs to fit, and you source your own data and create a viz that gets judged on analysis, design, and storytelling. So in anticipation and in honor of the qualifiers kicking off soon, we thought it would be a great time to talk about how you can enhance your qualifier vizes. And we're going to showcase 2 authors who finished in the top 10 last year as well. So with that, we have Sarah Bartlett in the community spotlight today. She's going to be talking about her IronViz feedback initiative that she hosts every year. Branden Kornell is here, and he's going to be walking us through his top 10 qualifier about the Boston Marathon viz. And Cherie Bardsley will be talking about her Bears of BrooksRiver viz, which also finished in the top 10 last year. So we are excited. We have quite a lineup. Before that, we're just going to introduce ourselves here. Our hosts at the Tableau Public Tug. We have Agata Ketterick, me, Lisa Truscott, and Eric Howard. If you don't know us, hi, I'm Lisa. I'm Lisa Truscott. I'm a research analyst. I work at Miracosta College, which is in North County, San Diego, where I work with a lot of student services data and student equity data. I love visiting about TV, movies, pop culture. That's pretty much what my whole Tableau Public profile is at this point. Just kind of fun themes that I enjoy. Okay, I'm going to toss it over to Agata to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Agata Ketterick. I'm a 5-time Tableau ambassador and BI visualization team lead at Gannett. We're a media company best known for USA Today and a network of local news outlets. And I love making data accessible, supporting the Tableau community, and helping others grow their skills through storytelling and design. Eric, over to you.
Thanks. I'm Eric Howard. I'm a Tableau ambassador again this year. And for all you guys out there, when I submit my application, I don't think I do much of anything throughout the year, but then you make a list of all the stuff you've done, and it really adds up. So I really enjoy being part of the community and contributing on a lot of different levels, but the main thing I like to do is speak at our local tugs and other tugs. So get out there and share your knowledge and be a part of the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric and Agata. Okay, so let's get into it. So our agenda today, we have Sarah Bartlett kicking things off in the community spotlight, and then we will have Branden Kornell. And before we get to Cherie's viz, we're going to do a quick swag drawing, so you want to make sure you stick around for that. Okay, welcome Sarah Bartlett. Sarah Bartlett is a Tableau Visionary Hall of Famer. She's a Tableau ambassador. She co-leads the London Tableau user group, and she's passionate about building and enabling data communities, founding the Iron Quest project, and sharing knowledge through her blog, Sarah Loves Data. Through speaking engagements, community projects, and mentoring, she champions user-focused, impactful visualizations that drive adoption and empower others. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you today.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm excited to talk about IronViz.
Yeah. Well, before we get into IronViz, I think we always just like to know how and when people started using Tableau and kind of what got you into it.
Yes, so I started using Tableau in November 2014, so over 10 years ago, which is crazy. At that time, I was working primarily with Excel, and my company were moving towards Tableau. So they were like, hey, go and learn this thing called Tableau. I had no idea what it was. I got sent on a 2-day course, and I guess the rest is history. But I got involved in the community because I was kind of on my own at work, I was the only analyst and I needed some support. Like I didn't understand Tableau at all. So I started going on blogs from people like Andy Kriebel, because the community wasn't like what it is today back then. He was one of the key voices at the time, and just learned a lot from his videos and blogs, and then got involved in community initiatives, and yeah, the rest is history, I think.
Yeah, well, quite a history. So what background did you have, and what kind of led you to using Tableau at your job?
Yeah, so I've always worked with data. I studied economics at university, then went into roles where I was basically a data analyst, but primarily working with Excel. So it was when I was in that role, they were like, I was building out dashboards in Excel. I hate to say it. And they were like, we need a more robust solution. So that was what brought me to Tableau. And then from then on out, I sought out roles that were primarily focused on Tableau or consulting, and that kind of thing.
I think we all were building dashboards in Excel at some point before we found Tableau. Okay, so let's get into some IronViz talk. So first off, how many IronViz qualifiers have you participated in? And then kind of how did your experience evolve over time with them?
Yeah, so I first went to TC in the US in 2015, I think. Yeah, that was in Austin. So that was my first kind of experience with IronViz. I was like, what is this? I just went into the room and IronViz was on, and it, like Curtis Harris and people like that, where they were visualizing, I think it was New York City taxi data. So I was just kind of blown away by the whole experience. And then I think the next year, or a few years later, they launched IronViz at the TCs in Europe. So I started entering from that point. I got into the final in TC Europe in 2018. I lost out to Klaus Schulte, but that's cool because Klaus is amazing. And it just had the most amazing experience. And then from then on, actually took the leap, what I thought was a bigger leap, in entering the main IronViz competition, like in the globals. Back then they had 3 feeders every year, so it wasn't just the one. So you had like 3 chances to get in, and they picked one winner from each feeder, which was completely different to how it's run now. But yeah, so I got involved then. I think I've entered about 5 in total. That would include Europe and the globals as well.
You think you'd ever do it again?
No. I'm retired. I took after I participated, and I think you're going to get onto these questions, but after I participated, I was more thinking about what I could do to help others with the process. Yeah. And I've kind of taken a step back, and my focus has primarily been on helping other people get there since then. Rather than, it's stressful. It's a huge commitment to enter IronViz. So
it is. So what role do you see Tableau Public playing in the IronViz qualifiers?
I mean, that underpins everything, right? It wouldn't exist without Tableau Public. I think both, obviously, we use Tableau Public to publish our vizzes too, but it's where we can go for inspiration as well. I think it's really great at bringing more people to Tableau Public, and just, people sharing their work out there, and people stumbling across Tableau Public because they found an IronViz viz online or took an interest in the topic that was visualized. So yeah, it's critical, I think, to the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so like you said, you're in a little bit more of a supportive role now. Can you tell us more about the IronViz feedback initiative that you started? And then importantly, do you have plans to host it again?
Yeah, and I think you're quite key to this story. So I think, if I remember rightly, I launched it in 2019 because I did IronViz Europe in 2018. Then the rest of that year, I kind of sat out IronViz. So I was a little bit overwhelmed by the whole IronViz experience. But that whole time I was thinking, what can we do to help other people? What I saw at the time was Twitter was really popular. People were putting out messages saying, hey, like, if you want any feedback, like, DM me. And there was a lot of this kind of going around. But if you didn't see those messages, or if you didn't know those people, you might not know that was something that was available to you. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had an initiative where people could go, whether they were connected with the community or not, and actually get feedback on their work. So that was launched in 2019. And let's be clear, this initiative is led by me, but it wouldn't happen without the support of some amazing people across the community. So typically every year I have about 20 people supporting from across the globe, so we can cover all time zones. But when I launched in 2019, I think you took part, Lisa, because that was the year that you entered the feeders for
2021 is actually
okay. So maybe I'm a year out. So okay, so because you were in the first one, I know that much. And obviously then got to the competition the following year. But I got it's great that Bo won last year, because from every feeder since the one that you were in, I've had a finalist who's taken part in the winner has taken part in in this initiative. So that's been really lovely to see. And this year, but the only person that participated in the initiative in the final was Bo, and obviously we know that Bo went on to win the competition, so that was really great. But yeah, so I've been running this initiative, like I said, because I wanted to give people a way of really having somewhere to go for feedback. It's global, so we have volunteers supporting from across the world, so we can cover all time zones. So no matter where you are, you can come and meet with us. Quite often I'll end up having calls at funny times. That might be early in the morning and late at night. So one of the finalists was from Australia a few years back. His name escapes me, which is terrible, but I remember meeting with him like very, very early in the morning with Michelle Freeman, and it's really lovely to have these conversations. In fact, Cherie was on one of the feedback calls last year, and we had an amazing conversation about her viz, which you're going to cover later. But the great thing about these calls is you both get to meet the person, you have like a more intimate conversation, but you also get to learn why they're so passionate about the subjects that they're visualizing about, which it might not always come across when you see their final visualization on public.
I think that's just my favorite thing about IronViz qualifiers in general is you can see what people are passionate about, and you learn so many things. You're like, I didn't know I would ever care about, bears eating salmon, but now I do because I saw this cool viz.
It's amazing. Yeah. I'm just looking at the notes in the chat. So the initiative is called the IronViz Feedback Initiative. It's not very creative in its name. You can find out about it on my blog, which is sarahlovesdata.co.uk. It was a spin-off of like IronQuest. So IronQuest, I haven't run IronQuest for about a year now, and it will pick up again at some point. But the purpose I launched IronQuest in 2018, and that was a way for people to prep for the IronViz competition outside of the qualifier time. So what I was finding was that people were doing community projects like Make of a Monday, Workout Wednesdays, but they always came with a prep data set, and it was kind of just, go away and visualize this quickly in an hour or something. And there wasn't anything really more meaty that mimicked the experience of IronViz, where you had to kind of get your own data, prepare your data, and then build out that story. So that's why I founded IronQuest. And then the way that the IronQuest feedback initiative came about was, I thought, well, I don't want to push anyone to do IronQuest while the qualifiers are on. That's just silly. So I thought, why not replace it with a feedback initiative instead? So that's how it all came about, really.
Oh, I love that origin story. Because I feel like the qualifiers are very different than any other community projects that we have where you're given the data, because I think we mentioned it up top, but I'll just say it again. For the qualifiers, you pick your topic within a theme and you go find your own data. So it is a very different kind of project than anything else in the community.
Yeah, and I find that some people don't have the skills to kind of prep their own data or even know where to start, and then that puts them off, instantly. So with IronQuest, what we tend to do is we'll visualize a topic just the same way you would as the qualifiers, and we might share some kind of data sets as a start of a 10 to get people going.
Right. So in your view, what sets a great qualifier viz apart? And are there any examples from recent years that kind of stick in your mind at all as being most memorable or very memorable?
Yeah, I think as you said, the scoring criteria, design, storytelling, and analysis, I think it's something that really stands out and is memorable when it comes to design and that story. Sometimes we see some with some very, very powerful stories. I recall some over the years. I think one from Mike Cisneros that kind of sticks in my mind, which was very impactful and really stuck with me. But in terms of the ones from more recent years, I actually made a list because I didn't want to forget any. But a few that stand out for me was Emily de Padua's Love Across the Eras, which was her viz on Taylor Swift. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. I'm not a Swiftie. I know nothing about Taylor Swift, although Emily is a huge friend of mine. But that taught me a lot about the whole Swiftie kind of thing and the eras and how they all interlink. So, but I know how much Emily loves Taylor Swift, and so it was very heartfelt to see that viz and then see it come to life. Another one is Lewis Hughes Beyond the Joystick. So I know about his love for gaming, and just to see that brought to life on the page was really lovely to see. Obviously Bo McCready's One Hit Wonders viz from last year that got him into the final. That one was he actually participated in the feedback initiative. I think I met with him maybe 5 times during the course of that month. So I saw that viz go from just a skeleton right through to the end. So it was really lovely to see that come together. So that it has a lot of meaning for me, like just to been part of that process. Cherie's viz on the Bears of Brook River, which you're going to cover later today, that one stands out for me. It was something that was completely new to me, and it was presented in such a beautiful way. I'm not surprised, it made it into the top 10. And then finally, from a few years ago, Will Sutton's Interpreting Art, which got him into the final. So that was around a game where you kind of like draw. It's like I don't know what you call it, but you draw something and the other people have to guess what you've drawn, and that was just so hilarious. But it was interactive, and you could almost play the game as you went. So I really enjoyed interacting with that one.
Yeah, those are some classic ones. Yeah, Will's was fun because it was so interactive and different from anything I'd seen before.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we probably have some people on the call who are maybe contemplating entering IronViz this year. So what advice would you give those who are participating?
Yes, so I would say, first of all, go for it. Don't be scared. I put off myself entering for many years because I was so afraid. I think, I hate to say it, but the chances of you getting into the final and getting on stage are very, very slim. So don't let that put you off, because I think some people may think, oh, well, I could never be on the stage. It's so scary. So they don't do it. But even if you get that far, and obviously I want you to get that far, and it would be amazing if you could, but even if you get that far, you will be supported. So I think everyone who's made it that far has been daunted and been like, oh my God, what have I got? What have I signed myself up for? But the team will support you. You'll get all the help that you need to see you through that process. And when you get onto that stage, it's not the first time you're doing it. There's plenty of, as you'll know, Lisa, like plenty of practice runs. In my case, I think it was slightly different because it was in Europe, but I think we did 3 full run throughs on stage before we actually did the real thing. So once we did the real thing, it was like a dress rehearsal. It's like we'd done it so many times before. But my advice for you would be to allow enough time. So start as early as you can once the topic is announced, and try and allocate your time, maybe week by week, have a goal to get to by the end of that week. So it could be that you want to finish maybe by halfway through the month, so that you can allow some time for tweaks and feedback and refinement. I think that often the biggest part is finding the data and preparing the data. I one year did this is for the global qualifiers as well, and I made it into the top 10 with this viz, but I built this viz overnight. So I'd spent the whole month prepping my data and prepping some visuals and things that I hadn't actually built the viz. So I had everything nicely prepared, but no viz. So I stayed up. I think I started at like 7 p.m. and I stayed up till 7 a.m. because I'm in the UK. I get a little bit of extra time because of time zones, and it's usually aligned to the Pacific time zone. So yeah, I stayed up literally all night to prepare this viz and just throw everything on the page, and somehow made it into the top 10. But I do not recommend doing that.
Which viz was that?
It was on like prolific, like kind of language used in rap music. So I think it was a music theme. Wow.
Okay, I'll have to go look at it.
Yeah, but so I would say definitely allow yourself enough time and try and finish way before the deadline, so you can allow yourself time for tweaks. And then once you're happy, submit it. Like you can always go back and tweak it before the deadline comes, should you realize something was wrong. But yeah, just I hate to see it when people run out of time. So I've seen that a lot of times. People have put in a lot of work and then they just didn't get time to finish because that kind of life happened. So just allow yourself as much time as possible.
And don't forget to submit it. Like you can't just post it to public and be like, there it is, there's my qualifier. You actually have to submit it on the qualifier page. So don't forget that. And I will also give advice. Go to Sarah's feedback initiatives. They are incredibly helpful. I did it my year and it worked out really well. Bo did it. Sounds like Will did it. Sounds like
they've all done it. Yeah, everyone, I think all the winners, or at least people that have been in the final, have done it. Since your final, Lisa, so for the good last 5 years. So it shows that it works. We get some great reviews every year of people that have come back and said how much it helped them. I'm definitely going to be running it this year. I haven't set up the initiative or source of volunteers yet, but I have a good pool of people I can pull upon, and that includes previous finalists as well. So that's always good to get their experiences.
Yeah, plus that feedback initiative is good, not just for IronViz, right? You get feedback from, visionaries and ambassadors that you can take with you to other projects and other visits too. So it's
absolutely. And I think there's some other feedback initiatives that run. So I know Michelle Freeman was previously running, and Nicole Klassen, they were previously running a feedback initiative. I'm not sure if that's still running, but I'm sure we can find out and see. But I know Michelle's in particular is incredibly, and Nicole, they're both incredibly passionate about giving feedback and helping others. And if not them, there's always people out there that will help you with your visits if it's not IronViz.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Sarah. We love having you, and we appreciate the feedback initiative you run, IronQuest, when it gets back up and running. And we love that you took the time. Anything else you want to mention before we turn it over?
I would say just good luck, everyone who enters this year, and I hope to see you on the stage in San Diego.
Me too. Awesome.
Thank you for inviting me on, and best of luck with the rest of the event.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Eric, it's over to you.
All right. You want to throw up the quick slide for Branden's intro? I'll get started with the bio. So Branden has been working in analytics for over 20 years and has specialized in Tableau for the last 13. In 2022, he founded BKSG Consulting, a boutique analytics and data visualization firm with deep roots in the scientific, pharmaceutical, and healthcare industries. He is a Tableau certified data analyst. He's a 2-time Viz of the Day winner, and he holds an MBA from Boston University. Welcome, Branden.
Thanks.
I love your Viz. It's so full of cool charts. I love the history bar that shows, how it's grown from like 100 years ago to what it is today. But I think my favorite is your jitter bars that show the distribution of individual finishers. That is so cool to me. And I have to ask, why is the Boston Marathon logo a unicorn?
There's no official reason, but the popular understanding is because it is a mythical creature that you will chase and get better by continuing to train and chase it, but you will never quite reach it.
Okay, so always getting better. Cool.
Yeah, and by the way, the official mascot is called Spike.
All right. Well, if Lisa will stop sharing, you can share and.
Great.
And also share a fun fact about yourself.
So fun fact about myself. Well, I've went kayak camping this summer and camped on a remote island with my friends.
That sounds cool.
All right. Great. So thanks for the introduction. As Eric mentioned, I founded my own consulting company, BKSG Consulting, and we specialize in Tableau. Also in the pharma, biotech, and public health spaces. My partner's a scientist, but open to projects for other industries. If you've got a small Tableau project, please, check us out. Give me a ring if you're interested. And everybody who's on this call, please, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, build up your network. All right, so today I'm going to be speaking about this Viz, how to get into the Boston Marathon. Before I submitted it to IronViz, I designed it for another competition. I designed it for ClearTelligence's Chart Champ, which happens here in the Boston area every fall. I'm a runner. I love the Boston Marathon. Every year when it comes around in the spring, I see amazing maps of the course. I see cool timelines, but I've never seen an explanation of how hard it is to get an official entry to the race. All the other major marathons that I know of in the world, New York City, Chicago, Berlin, they have a lottery where anybody who wants to can enter the lottery and it gets a chance to get in. Boston Marathon has never had a lottery. So I wanted to provide a guide to non-runners about just how difficult it is to get into the race. And for runners who are interested in doing Boston, kind of what their options might be. So like most other IronViz entries, this is a long form Viz. It goes all the way down. And one thing you'll notice is I stick to out of the box chart types. And I just put a lot of thought into the design, functionality, and questions that users might have. I like a nice big title to draw people into the Viz, how to get in the Boston Marathon. Very common technique that I use that many people do is to do it in PowerPoint. You can design pretty titles in PowerPoint. and then just right click and save as picture. One thing that I do encourage you all to do is if you do this, if you put pictures as titles, make sure you go in, edit your image, and include alt text so it's readable to screen readers. Eric did note the unicorn. So I've got a fun image of a unicorn. This is something pretty important for those of you who are doing IronViz, or if you're interested in doing Viz of the Day, or getting a Viz of the Day maybe. So on the Boston Marathon website, baa.org, they've got a very nice official logo with a unicorn. This is copyrighted. You need to be really careful not to use copyrighted material if you're entering IronViz or you're hoping to get a Viz of the Day. So what we've got instead, this unicorn that you see, is actually an image that comes off of a website I love, the Noun Project. They've got all kinds of images. I did buy it. It was a few bucks. It's the only thing that I paid for this IronViz. And then I took it into a paint program and I flipped it around, made it yellow and blue, etc. So again, if you put a nice picture in here, make sure you come in, you put your alt text and explain what it is. And as a little Easter egg, it actually sends people out to the official website. All right. Text. I put a lot of text in my Viz. It's great for history. It's great for analysis. But I also understand that most people are not going to read everything that I write. So my technique that I use, and I think Cherie uses the same thing, is to go in and just selectively highlight important words and phrases in bold so you can scan it. So world's oldest annual marathon, difficult to get an entry, 30,000 entrants, there's no lottery. Again, this is just Arial text for me and Arial bold if I want to pop something out. Dividers. So I've split this Viz up into different sections, options 1, 2, 3, and I've got dividers in between them. This is a really common technique. This is not an image. These are blank objects. In this case, I put 2 of them so I could have 2 different colors. But this is just a blank object. It's got a background color that I picked to match the official colors of the Boston Marathon. I played with the height to make it 5. And in this case, I've got a container that kind of pushes everything else away. So if you like to use containers, and I do, you can come in here and play with the spacing. And if you want to make it a little longer, you can change the bottom spacing to 60 and push things down, or put it back where I had it, 30, to make it look like that. All right. I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking about the different charts I have. The first one is the one that Eric mentioned. It's this bar chart that just shows the history of the Boston Marathon and how the growth is really explosive. In terms of finding data, the first thing you can do is go out to the official website and just look around, click around. And if you're lucky, you find something like this, where you can just copy and paste this directly into Excel. So this is the first kind of data set I use. It's the easiest, copy paste directly into Excel. In this chart, so it's a pretty obvious story, huge growth of the marathon. One of the things I wanted to do is if you're a user, you've got some giant bars that are outliers. I just want to go ahead and explain, okay, this first bar is for an anniversary. The second bar is off after the terror attacks. These are annotations. And all that is mark label, annotate. And you want to annotate the individual mark. The other thing I was worried might confuse people is, the early years of the marathon are so small that Tableau doesn't even really render a mark there. So a couple things. I've got custom tooltips. So if people hover over them, they will see that there is actual data there. And I also included an annotation for the very first year, 18 people, so that they know that there's a mark there. All right. So the first way to get into the Boston Marathon is what I'm calling run wicked fast. You have to run a very fast time in another marathon before you can get into Boston. And this chart, which shows the history of the qualification times, is really the genesis of this Viz. So it shows the history of qualification times. Every time the times get harder, the line jumps up. And every time the qualification times get a little bit easier, the line goes down. So just to baseline you, a marathon is 26.2 miles long. Most first-time finishers are down in here between 4 and 5 hours. So you can see, especially for young men, for young women, these are the times right now for 2026 race. They're significantly faster than most first-time marathoners do. So in this case, there is no web page on the website that has that data. There is this long history page, with when they started, and you've got men and women, and you've got some age groups. So I had to build my own data set out of this. But in this case, you can kind of see you've got some little subtables, age, gender, group, etc. And so this was a case of just coming to Excel and building a very basic chart that includes these columns. All right. Now, this kind of cool step chart in Tableau is it's a native feature. You don't have to do anything special for it. It's common for, in sports, something like world records, but in a business world, it could be something like bank interest rates or factory capacity, where things stay the same for a while and then they jump up or they jump down. But the good news is, as I mentioned, this is native Tableau, and it's just a line chart. So you've got this shelf called path. Most people don't click on it, but the line chart looks like that, and a step chart is just clicking over here like this. So one thing that's notable about this chart, this axis over here is reversed. 3 hours is the smallest time, and I put it up at the top. I actually gave this a lot of thought. Originally, it looks like this. This is what it came in originally as, and it makes a certain amount of sense. 3 is the smallest. But the one thing I didn't like was your eye is drawn across over and up to the 80-year-olds. And they're doing great stuff, but really in a lot of sports visualization, higher is better. So I thought it made a little more sense to edit the axis and reverse it. But I was concerned. I was concerned that people would get lost or get confused. So I actually put in 3 other signposts to help guide the user. One, which is very common, is what's called double encoding. So I've also got this time standard on color. I'm using a diverging scale. So faster is hotter, is orange, slower is cooler, and that's blue. And this is a little bit controversial to use a diverging scale when there's not a clear 0 point. The one thing I did do is make a 0 point at 4 hours, because 4 hours is kind of a common goal for marathoners. Okay, so that's one way to help remind the user of which way the scale goes. Another was to put just a text label in here that says easy or harder. Standard text label, little arrows, but it's rotated upward. So if you go to Format Object, you can change the alignment so it gets rotated upwards. And the third thing I did, and I did this through the whole Viz, is custom tooltips. So it goes, when it goes up, it uses English words. It says made harder, and then made easier. And the way I did that is I'm using table calculations. I've got a field called verb, and the table calculation is a lookup. So it looks up the time standard -1, which is the last one. If there was nothing there, I'm saying that's when it was introduced. If it's smaller, made harder. If it's the same, constant. Otherwise, it's easier. So all of those are working to keep the user from getting confused. So down below this, I've got all of the qualification times for different categories. Again, there's no single web page on the BAA website, Boston Athletic Association website. So I had to piece these together, but it lets you look at, what things are for wheelchair division, for people with limb impairments, for people with vision impairments, etc. So a few other things that I want to point out about these. This is, as you can probably guess, it's a parameter action. So this is a crosstab. This is a bar chart. The crosstab is just different categories. And the parameter action looks like this. So it's dashboard actions. And all it does is take the crosstab, put it out to the bar chart, and it's run on select, which means that you're clicking it. Okay. Other things that are important, this axis is fixed, so you can directly compare, what times are, for example, people with vision impairments versus people in the wheelchair. The axis doesn't change. The colors are also fixed, and it's the same color scale as above. So this lets you note really interesting things like the fact that the fastest wheelchair runners at 2-hour qualification times are actually much, much faster than the fastest men and women. If you've ever seen these wheelchair racers go, they go 30 and 40 miles an hour. It's pretty amazing. By the way, all these categories are the same as the Paralympics. So unfortunately, that even hitting this qualification time is not enough to get you into the race. The race is so popular, and there's only 30,000 slots, that they've added additional cutoff times for most years. Again, this is data that came right off the website. So you can see that in 25, you needed to run 7 minutes faster than that. 12,000 people didn't get in. And this is another case where there's a few years where it looks like there's missing data. I'm just making sure to tell the user, hey, here's the, where the data is. There's no cutoff time. It's not a mistake. I've got some nice yellow buttons that pop people out to the website. Again, those are just built here in Microsoft PowerPoint and saved as picture. So this is all well and good, but I wanted to put something in there that would really look at how many people can actually get into the race. Are we talking 10%, 5%? So I built what I called a qualification simulation, where I took the results of the London Marathon in 24, and I put all of the people on a dot plot as individual dots where you can look them up. And I said, okay, here's the standards. If they would hit the qualification standard, but not the additional time needed, they'd be in red. If they would actually hit both, they'd be in blue. We don't know how big that extra time buffer is going to be. So that's built as a parameter. So I defaulted it to 5 minutes. But you'll see if I increase it to something like 10 minutes, you'll see a lot more people get into the red. And then on the right, I'm summarizing it. So for example, with a 5-minute cutoff, 8% of the youngest men would actually be able to get into the race. 7% of the youngest women would be able to get into the race. So really liked this because it gives you a chance to include some analysis, which is up above. I'm talking about different beliefs. One is that a lot of runners think that it's easier for women to get into the race because the times for women are less stringent. I think for this cohort, it's definitely not true. You can see for almost every category, more men will get in than women. Another thing that's a common belief for runners is that, hey, it gets easier to get into the race as you get a little bit older. The times get easier. And in that case, that's pretty easy to see. As you get older, more and more people would be able to get into this race. And when you get up into your 60s, if you can still go the distance, you got a much better chance of getting into the Boston Marathon. So the data for this comes from the London Marathon website. And I came to this site, okay, you can get, you have to look up men and you can get 1,000 results at a time. Okay, that's good. London Marathon's 53,000 people. So my first thought was, hey, I got to spend a whole evening copying and pasting and putting this into Excel. And I tried it and it doesn't paste cleanly into Excel. And I know I'm going to screw it up. So I realized that I got to do this the right way, which is web scraping it. So what a web scraper is a program that goes to every single web page and downloads the data and puts it into a text file for you. So a few problems with that. I have never written a web scraper before. And I've taken a Python class. I write in Python once or twice a year. So every time I have to do Python, it's honestly really slow. So this is where the last few years, AI has just completely changed the game. I used Perplexity AI in this case to help me write the code. In this case, I just went to Perplexity. Let me show you what it looked like. I said I'd like to extract the London Marathon results. Here's what the results look like. And I started out, and the first pass is pretty good. It gives you a program. It shows you which libraries you need to use. It creates a function to get the results. It creates a function to save to CSV, and it outputs them. So, pretty cool. But there's some big caveats here. First of all, you got to remember AI is like a super eager intern. It took a Python class. It jumps up to say, I can do it, and it hands you its results, and those results are not 100% correct on the first try. It really took, you can see I went back and forth with the AI, fixing errors, saying, can you do this? Can you tweak it to do that? And I went back and forth, and it took me about 2 hours of back and forth, but still much quicker than if I had to write it from scratch. So you do need to know Python. You do need to double check and do debugging, but again, much quicker than from scratch. And every time I have a problem, I say, hey, things aren't winding up right. Here's what the HTML looks like. Can you fix it? And it's just a back and forth process. All right. So if you can't get into the race by running a fast time, and many runners can't, another option is to run for charity. So the charity program's been going on since '89. It's about 2,500 runners a year. It's also really, really competitive to get a charity slot. I've got some bands, but the official minimum, at least when I did this, was you had to raise $5,000 a year. Most individual charities require you to raise more. Most individual charities require you to do $10,000. Charity that I ran for this year is requiring $15,000. So I've got just a bullet chart to kind of show how charity fundraising is a big commitment. So that's pretty straightforward. When I started looking at the individual charities, I hit another problem. When you go to the BAA website, all you really get is a big old list of these different organizations. There's really no public information on how much money each of them raises. It's, that's private within each organization. So I faced kind of another question of, hey, how do I visualize this? How can I make this interesting to explore? And again, I went back to AI. In this case, I did use ChatGPT. And I said, hey, I got a list of 160 organizations. Can you put them in a table that puts them in categories and gives a description of what each one does? And again, AI jumped out and did a pretty good first pass. They said, okay, you've got some that are health and medical, you've got some that are children and youth services, homelessness, et cetera. And I said, categories look good. Can you make my table? It puts them into a table for you. And, you can copy this directly into Excel. Again, AI is not perfect. I did double check this. There were some things where I felt like it wasn't really a correct category or an apt category. There's a few where I saw the description and I knew that description was not correct. So you really gotta double check what is being built for you by AI. So now I've got the categories and I wanted to create something where people could explore them. So I built these kind of circles, unit charts, dot chart, I don't know what you call it, but it's built so that people can just hover over and see the different organizations. Now, again, this is a native kind of Tableau chart. You don't have to do anything special to make these cool spirals. I'll build one really quickly for you. So all you have to do to build one of these charts is take your ID field. You could use ID, but I've got, I'm going to use the name. So it's called, where's my organization? Hold on, that's charity, international tours, organization. So you just put organization on detail. You put the same number on size. So sum of 1, and that makes it a tree map. And then you change this from automatic to circles, and you get that kind of cool circle thing. And then you can use rows and colors. So for example, you can put category up there the same way I did, or you could put category on color. So fun way if you just have individual things to kind of kind of make a little thing to explore them. But the one thing I didn't like was I wanted to give the user a list of everything so they could look something up. So that is a highlighter. I've got highlighter organization. And then you can see a whole list of individual organizations. And if you find one that you like Boston Theater Company, you can go find it like that with a highlighter. All right. Final way to get into the race is what I call running or flying to the US. So about a third of the field every year is international runners. Most of those people run qualifying times, or they're very fast runners from all over the world. Some of them are also charity runners, but an option is to take an official affiliated marathon tour that includes what they call guaranteed race entry. So it's a tour, comes with a bib. So if I have geographic information, immediately, hey, that screams map. This is a 2-layer map. So one layer, the shaded map. So the shaded map is countries of residence, where you can see how many runners came from Canada, from Mexico, etc. The other is a list of the international tours. So it's a symbol map where I've got a little circle for each, and it's got a viz in tooltip that shows the names of the tour companies. So the viz in tooltip is just showing a crosstab that has the name of the tour operator. So these are 2 separate data sets. This one with the countries was pretty easy to copy off the website. Actually, both of them were pretty easy to copy off the website. But let me go into the data source and just show you how they're related. So the tours are over here. You can see different operators by country, countries that people came from, again, country, number of entries, and it's a relationship between the two, country to country. And you have to do a little bit of cleanup to make sure the countries are spelled the same way, the punctuation's the same, etc. It's not USA on one side, United States of America on the other. So a few other things I'll point out. United States is removed from the data, otherwise that would kind of blow out what your darkest color is. So this is just internationals. And a lot of times in a viz that I put on Tableau Public, I take off of all of these controls because users will kind of click around and they'll mess up, they'll zoom the map by accident. But in this case, I really wanted to leave these controls on because a lot of these countries are little, and it's really helpful to be able to zoom in on Europe, for example, and find, Belgium, or to actually, you can search for, an individual country. So that's helpful. A lot of users, you'll notice if I click off, these controls do not show, they're hidden by default. So one thing, a lot of users don't know those controls are there. I actually put the words hover for search and zoom to tell them, hey, there's controls there. Very bottom, I've got a list of other kind of niche options. I talk about volunteering, and then I've got a footer that includes my name. Be sure to give yourself credit. The hashtag, so I'm including the IronViz hashtag, and then sources. So it brings me to the end of the viz, also brings me to the end of the presentation, and happy to pass the mic back.
Well, thank you, Branden. That was awesome. You can see from the comments, everybody's really impressed with the thoughtfulness you put into this. And like I said, I was surprised by your off-the-shelf visits. And while they were off the shelf, they usually weren't, the first option. You were, pulling in things that I didn't know were available. So that was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? Can you show users how you locked your color palette?
How I locked in the color palette. Yes, I gotta share again. Yeah, sure. So the color palette is locked in. No. let me pop out here. So this is really just the case of going to your color shelf, editing colors, and it's a custom diverging. I am using a little. I thought this was fixed. I'm surprised this does not say, but I thought that these were fixed at 250 and 530. If not, then the way it was automatic was correct. But in this case, it's actually defining these start and center. And because these are times, it's a little bit kooky because you'll see it's 1899. 4 a.m. is 4 hours. Tableau doesn't have a time data type, so everything is 1899. But the key thing is just these are two different vises here and down below. You just have to make sure to set up your color shelf where the colors are locked in at the exact same way. Any other questions? Yeah, so in this case, I did do start 250 and 530 and center at 4 hours. For
the different viz, yeah.
Yep.
And I believe that feature just got an upgrade in the latest version, so that might look a little different.
Oh yeah, I haven't looked at it.
Yeah,
okay.
I think they made it easier.
All right.
Where you can use a parameter or two, I think, for the start.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Any other questions while I'm sharing?
Lots of comments, no questions.
All right.
Well, thank you, Branden. That was very insightful. Any last minute recommendations you can make for anybody thinking about IronViz?
Viz your passion is what a lot of people say. I hadn't planned to enter Chart Champ, and then I hadn't planned to do it for IronViz, but it's like, I love running, I love the sport, and as I started doing it, it was fun to work. So I didn't mind putting the time in. But Viz your passion, definitely get feedback. The feedback initiative is amazing. I did this for another competition, but I got feedback from my business partner on what she thought was effective. So that's going to make your Viz, 100% better if you have somebody else look at it who's not you.
Collaborate. Always good tips. All right. Well, thank you. Well, let's take a quick break for some swag. Let me share my screen real quick. And we will spin to win. So if the winner will email tableau.public.tug@gmail.com, I will send you a $50 gift certificate. So I'm going to botch this name. Chipocheria? Yeah, I know that's not right, but apologies in advance, but we've got a $50 Tableau store gift certificate for you. So I will DM you here in a moment, and we will get that set up. Thank you for attending, and now I will hand it over to Agata and Cherie. As soon as I can stop sharing. Nope.
All right, and I will introduce Cherie. Cherie has been working with Tableau for over 10 years and describes herself as a visualization artist. She joined Charter Communications, also known as Spectrum, at their Denver campus in 2020, calling it her dream job. So today she leads the Byflow operations, reporting, and analytics team, where she creates advanced Tableau dashboards that help drive company decision-making. Before moving into the data world, Cherie spent 11 years with the National Park Service, 9 at Yellowstone, and 2 at the Grand Canyon. And she holds a BA in Information Systems and a Data Science certification from Johns Hopkins University. So today, Cherie will be sharing her visualization, The Bears of Brooks River, which she entered into the IronViz competition last year. So Cherie, tell us all about this viz you created.
Okay, sorry about that. I want to first thank everyone for inviting me. I'm really excited to present. any chance for me to talk about something I love, in particular bears, is awesome, and I can go on and on and on, but I'll try not to do that in this forum. So I started out working on this visualization actually in late 2023. So kind of what inspired me was my love of bears. I worked in Yellowstone National Park for 9 years, and I spent a lot of my free time out there with the carnivore ecologists and the wolf watcher community in the park. Wanted to learn everything I possibly could about bears and wolves in the park. They quickly, along with the bison, became some of my favorite animals that I'd ever observed. So we would go to the Lamar Buffalo Ranch, and we'd spend a lot of time in the field through the Yellowstone Field Institute, tracking and studying these animals and their behavior. And I just fell in love more and more and more with the bears. And I started sharing stories about my experiences with them, with anybody that would listen. And a park ranger friend of mine who worked at Old Faithful told me one day, he said, hey, he had worked in Alaska, and he had said, you're such a bear person, you should really go see the big bears up there. So I was kind of familiar with them because they have, and I'll share this with you guys, there is a really cool website. A lot of the national parks have webcams where you can watch live activities. Like at Yellowstone, you can watch Old Faithful go off, and at Brooks Falls, you can literally go on the explorer.org and pick any topic that you want to watch. A lot of the parks have these park cams where you can watch things live. You can actually watch these bears live at the falls at Brooks River. So, and then in 2014, they started the Fat Bear Week event, which is a huge global thing. There was another viz submitted by Brittany Rossinow about the Fat Bear Week competition. I really loved her viz. Also, it was kind of crazy because neither one of us thought that anyone else would enter business about the bears into the competition, but we both did. And I also loved what she did. So if you get a chance, go check out her biz as well. So I became a huge fan of these bears, got to know many of them by learning more and more about them, got to know individuals, and it really inspired me to learn more about them. So I made a visit to Katmai National Park to actually go see these bears in person with my husband. And it was such an amazing experience that when I got back, I was like, I just really have to tell this story. And I think one of the best vehicles would be Tableau. And my original idea was just to build a viz and put it up on Tableau Public and share it with everyone. So it took me a long time to get there, though, because in order to build this, the data was really messy, and I will show you guys what that looks like here in a second. But it took such a long time to get that together that 2024 kind of rolled around, and all of a sudden the idea of IronViz came up, and I thought, why not? I never submitted to IronViz before, but I kind of always wanted to, and I thought this would be a great way to share my love of these bears with the Tableau community, and a great way to raise awareness for Katmai. And Katmai is the fourth largest national park in the system, but it gets very little funding. You know, the parks in Alaska are pretty remote, and it's hard for people to visit. So I thought, hey, this would be really great, and at the same time, I can help promote the park. So the first thing I had to do was to go find some data about the bears at Brooks River. Just Googling and exploring around and looking at things that the Park Service had. I ran into this site called the Bear Cam Wiki. This site is all about the bears of Brooks River. There is so much information out here. It's crazy, but as you can see, none of it's in a table form. None of it is, it's just all like basically field note kind of format, sightings information. There's a cool chat portion of this site. I won't bring that up right now, but there's just tons of field notes, and there's information about individual bears out here. There are pictures of the bears. There's just all kinds of stuff out here about the bears. So I heavily use this site for the data, but I had to take basically field notes and translate them into a data set that I could use to even start building. And let me show you where I started. Where I started was basically I just went out and I had to manually do this because I could not even come up with a tool that could scrape this very effectively or anything like that. So I thought, well, rather than spend a whole bunch of time on that, just in my free time, I'll go out and I'll build a big Excel workbook with a whole bunch of data in it. So I went out and I just started building it and I built it by bear sightings by year was where I started. Then I started adding more and more detail about, with the IDs and the nicknames, and then, is this an adult bear? Is it a cub? Is it a subadult? There's all these different classifications of bears that had to go into this. And then what sex is the bear? Is it male, female? And up at Katmai, they also have a category called unknown. And that one's interesting because they just visually gather all this data. And sometimes depending on how old the bear is or the way that it's standing, or maybe they don't get a good look at it, they can't tell if it's a girl or if it's a boy. So that I found was really interesting. And then they document pretty well about the ages of most of the bears. Sometimes they just classify it as a subadult, and so I just had to generically say, hey, that's about a 2.5-year-old bear in that case. And I just filled in the blanks based on my own knowledge of bears and kind of what I'd learned over the many years. Then I wanted to include some information about if it was a female, had it had litters, had it had cubs, and how many times, because bears can live to be quite old and females can have quite a few litters. Whether or not a bear had been a Bear Week champ here, like Otis in this case. And then I broke the data down even further. I went and said, hey, bears by month. So the season in Katmai runs from May until October every year. Some bears are even seen in November, but those sightings are so few that I quickly just kind of focused on May through October. And I built out one tab for every single year with all the months in it. So that's kind of where I started. As the Viz began to evolve, I started building separate charts with only the data I needed because I started to worry a little bit about performance of the Viz, especially with the chart types that I thought I was going to build. So it took a long time, and I have this thing called a job that I have to attend, so I had to work on it in my spare time. So I just mostly worked on it in the evenings and the weekends to put all of this together. I didn't really end up doing any real joins or blends or anything like that because I was curating this whole data set from scratch. I could kind of tailor it to the charts that I intended to build. And then the next thing that I did that I would recommend is I actually built an outline of the story that I thought I wanted to tell. And I wrote down a list of questions that I thought the Viz should answer. And I thought long and hard about these questions, and I incorporated these into the Viz. You can see here, the very first question is, how many bears visit the river each year? And, kind of what are the factors related to that question? And so I went and I was thinking, what kind of a chart do I want to build for this? And I really wanted to make it visual and have it represent the Katmai National Park as best as I could. And I ran across this cool chart called a stream graph. I'd never built one, but I'd seen some examples of them, and I thought, a stream graph, awesome. That could represent the river. That could represent Brooks River. Brooks River, if you guys don't know, it's a real small river. It's only about 1.5 miles long, and it connects. It flows right through that portion of Katmai National Park into a big bay. So it's not a very long river. And I was thinking that would really visually be really cool if I could build that. So I was out checking out things on Tableau Public, which I love. Tableau Public has amazing things. You can learn a lot by downloading stuff and reverse engineering things that you see. And there's also some great tutorials. There was this cool thing I ran across from Ludovic Tavernier, who basically has a tutorial that explains kind of how to go about building a stream graph. So I went out and I learned from him how to do this. And you can download this viz and you can take a look at if it'll ever quit spinning the wheel. You can download the viz and then you can also link to the tutorial, and that's how I figured out how to build this this beautiful chart that kicks off the viz. So underneath this, there's tooltips. This chart, by the way, is divided into 3 sections. One for you can see the color legend in the tooltips, where this lighter blue represents the females, the darker blue represents the males, and then this one in the center are all of the unclassified or unknown sex of the bear. And then this tooltip also talks about the total number of bears by the year, whether that number of bears is increasing or whether it's decreasing, or what's going on with the population of bears at Brooks River. And this is really important because this indicates sort of the health of the ecosystem up there. And you can see how much the bears have, how many more bears that have come to Brooks River since 2014. And just like Branden did, I used some annotations up here, that they were in there in the beginning. This was part of the feedback initiative that I joined with Sarah Bartlett to get feedback on the viz. And originally what I had up here was a little bit confusing because when I went to the feedback session, they said, hey, a couple things about your chart. What are those numbers at the top? And I was like, well, that's the total. And even though I still had the tooltips in here, they suggested, hey, just remove those and annotate it, which I did. And they also requested that. They said, hey, we think it'd be good too if you made these colors in the river more vibrant. So I did. I took both of those suggestions and absolutely did what they said. And after I was finished, I thought, that looks so much better. That is amazing. These guys are great. So I highly recommend that feedback initiative to anybody who's doing this, because you can take something that you think is pretty good and make it even better just by meeting with people and seeing what their take is on your viz. Then the next section was the Fat Bear Week competition, which is a big piece of what happens at Katmai. And I wanted to showcase the winners from all the way back to when the contest started. Otis was the first winner. And so I thought what would be really cool for this is sort of a half circle chart with each bear and a picture of it. And then I think if you're going to do tooltips for IronViz, I would make sure you do fancy tooltips, because if you're going to put information in there, make it look really great and make them really beautiful. The other thing I thought would be neat is, so I built this chart and then there was kind of nothing underneath it. And I was like, hey, what else is really important about these bears is how long it takes them to actually become a Fat Bear Week champion. And so I thought the age of the bear is kind of a really important point for this, because you can see that these bears are not young bears. It takes them a while to bulk up and become the big titans that are out on the river. So their age has a lot to do with it. And so I thought, hey, I can put this cool, like another cool half circle chart in here, kind of showcasing the ages of these different bears. One other thing I did with this was wrap the text around the whole thing. And then I also put in here, and I hope this works for you. Let me do Otis, because he's one of my favorites. There's a ranger up in Katmai who has these great videos for each of these, a lot of the bears that are up there, and it's called Meet the Bear. So I wanted to include a link because there are some people who are very visual learners, and I thought this would be a great way. They can click the link. It will take you out to the website, and it'll play a video there that Mike Fitz has. I won't play the whole video here for you now, but it'll introduce you to the bear, talk about the bear, show a lot of video of the bear, and it kind of gets people to know individual traits of the bear so they can kind of recognize them. So I thought that was really cool, and I thought I'm going to add that so that people can actually meet these bears and learn more about them while they're there. So
I just have a quick question for you while you're on this section. So they win. I was reading this today. So they win based on how much weight they gain. Is that right?
Well, it's not an actual scientific weight. So
Okay.
what they do is they put pictures up, and I think Brittany's Biz explains this really well too. They put pictures up on Fat Bear Week showing the bear at the beginning of the season and the end of the season. And then people vote on which bear they think has gotten the biggest.
Okay.
It's it's not really scientific at all, but it's just so much fun. And this competition has grown and just become an amazing thing. You know, they don't sedate these bears. They don't. Some of them are so big, like 747. He weighs 1,400 pounds. How would you get a scale?
Did they just guess? Like that's like a guess at how much they weigh?
It's a good guess. And then with some of the bears, like some of these bears, the Park Service has attempted to use a technology called LiDAR to help them estimate the weight. It's kind of a sort of a LiDAR's I think it's some sort of technology that will go out and estimate based on sort of mass and different calculations, and then it pumps out what it thinks the weight range might be. So that's what they do. But some of these bears, like if it was based solely on weight, 747 would win every year because he's absolutely the biggest one out there. But it's not always based on that. Like sometimes a certain bear like Razor, when she won in 2023, it was based on the fact that she just looked massive by the end of the year. She was this big, blonde, woolly beast that was wandering around out there. And she won because people thought she actually had gotten the biggest from all the salmon that she ate.
A little bit of a popularity contest, too. So.
It is a popularity contest. Some people just vote for their favorite bear every time. Not necessarily that bear got the biggest, but a lot of classrooms and schools participate in this Fat Bear Week too, to help teach children about bears. And this has become incredibly popular in schools around the world, with teachers going out and introducing their students to the bears and to talk about the importance of the health of that ecosystem and stuff. It's really cool. So anyway, that's about Fat Bear Week. And then I also wanted to include, I had all this information about all the bears that were the individual bears. And I thought, how in the world would I ever represent that in a small space? So CJ Maines, I remembered, had a cord chart that he had built. And I was like, aha, that might be a great way to, show these bears. And the idea here was to answer the question, do these bears return every year? And, from working in Yellowstone, I know that bears come back where food's available. They always go to the same place over and over again if there's food there. That's why you don't ever want to leave your food out, because bears will continue to come back there even long after you're gone. So, I wanted to say, hey, I wanted to explore that. Like, have these bears always come back? And you can see the ones that are really old have been coming back for 10 years. At least between 2014 and 2013. Some of these were probably even there before then. But it's pretty consistent. And you notice like these ones that have just started coming there, there's only 5 of them. Some of them are older. Some of them are kind of transient bears that have come and gone throughout the region. But a couple of these are very young bears. a lot of the young bears show up in the 2-year category. So it was kind of interesting to take a look at that and just to see, what was going on. And then I included a thing here about how these bears are identified, because they just take photos of them and they assign a unique number if a bear has been seen there 3 times during the season. And then they don't give them a nickname, but some of them end up with nicknames, because, you kind of can't help but give bears nicknames, I guess, because they're such cool people. So anyway, that's kind of how I did the same thing that I did with Ludwig's stream graph. I grabbed CJ Main's chord chart and just basically reverse engineered it and figured out how to build it. And then also use tooltips here for each individual bear to describe a little bit about it in that chart. So the next piece I wanted to explore here was there's definitely a relationship between the bears and the salmon. And it's because the sockeye salmon are what's considered the keystone species in Katmai. Sort of everything that happens in Katmai really depends on the salmon and the health of the salmon run. And it's directly tied to the entire ecosystem, including the bears. So if, people had asked me, like, what would happen if there were if something happened to the sockeye? That would be devastating, because then while bears can eat a lot of other things, they would be forced to go forage for different stuff in that part of Alaska. And most of their diet is sockeye salmon. So it could result in, a catastrophic thing for the ecosystem, and not just for the bears, but everything else that relies on the salmon. So for this, I had to go to the Alaska Department of Fish and Game and go find some data about that, and go through a lot of their stuff too. Was not in tables. Some of it was, but most of it wasn't. So I had to go find this data about the salmon escapement. And what that is, for people who don't know, is that there's fishing in Alaska. So 25% of the world's sockeye are caught in that area up around where Brooks River is at. And salmon aren't only a critical food source for bears, but they're for people as well. So there's fishing that takes place. So the Alaska Department of Game and Fish, they help the fishing industry forecast what they think the salmon runs are going to look like, and then they set escapement goals to make sure that enough salmon escape the fishery and enter the rivers to spawn, including the Brooks River. So the Nanack River is where the salmon enter for Brooks River. And so this chart tells a story of the salmon runs, and you can see in the year that so far has had the highest salmon run, there was also the highest number of bears at Brooks River. So it's kind of interesting to look at the fishery and the Alaska Department of Game and Fish data. And I wanted to be sure to talk about that because the salmon are critical in that region. So then, because I visited the park, I wanted other people to know about when might be, because my first question when I went to visit was, well, what time would be the best time to go visit the park? People used to always ask me about that, about Yellowstone. And so in my research, I found the best times were to go in July or September to see the most bears. And I was like, hey, there should be a chart that shows, here's the times that are the best times to go see the bears. So I put each bear up here. If the bear is smaller, it means it's a cub or something, or a female. I guess I divided them by sex here. And then at the top, it shows how many bears are in this plot for each month of the season. And so in looking at this, you can tell you should visit there if you're going to visit and you want to see the bears. The best time is July or September, although October is still pretty good, but the weather gets kind of funny. It is Alaska after all. And so You can always look at the bears on the bear cams that I showed you guys anytime during the year, anytime during the season. And in the winter time, if you want to, you know, take a break, or if your life's getting stressful and you just want to look at bears and see happy bears, they replay highlights from the season in the winter time. So one thing that, a couple of things here too, that the feedback team, originally the chart had a different color palette, and they made a suggestion for me to change the color palette. Let me show you the original here. So it looked like this, and it was pretty muted and subdued, and they really felt that it would be better if it was along with the river, that this would be more saturated colors and a little bit brighter would work better. So I kind of worked with like a fall color palette on this. And one thing I always talk to people working on Viz is colors are really important in a Viz. You know, you want to make sure that you really, really, really think hard about your colors and kind of get a color palette together. One of the tools that I use, that I like to use, is iColor palette. Right here. This is a pretty cool site. It's free. You can go and you can upload an image that you have. So what I did for my images, I should talk about that too. I have a Shutterstock license, so I go out and I pull images that are available for use. And the Park Service is very generous about the use of photos as well. But my photos aren't exactly just straight photos. If you look at this Viz, these photos have been tweaked. I found this cool AI kind of art generator tool. I'd seen some stuff that Michelle, I love the way Michelle Framan does stuff with her family. And the Flurlich twins, they always have some animated characters of themselves, and I really like that. So, but for this, I wanted to do something kind of artistic with the photos. This was a Shutterstock photo. What happened with this photo is I took it and I ran it through this free program called Photor. And I used one of their, I forget what it's called, artifacts features. That's what they're called. And I applied several different artifacts to this to see what, it's an AI kind of thing. And I applied several different ones, and I settled on one that I really liked. So it's sort of a caricature of the animals, but I didn't really want to. It was important to me not to turn them into cartoon characters because they're not that, but a little bit more of an artful representation of the bears trying to grab a salmon at the falls. And I did the same thing with these icons in the Fat Bear Week. These are all images generated through Photor. And then what I did was, after I generated them, I threw them into PowerPoint and built a really kind of little cool circle icon out of each one. So, and then, you know, giving credit to where the photos came from, even if they're licensed, is important. So down here at the bottom, for my icons and different things, I either self-designed them or I got them, like Branden, I got mine from the Noun Project, especially these in the bottom. I also gave credit to where the images came from, whether I got them from the Catby Wiki or whether they came from Shutterstock with the license. And then I give credit to everybody down here, people that inspired me and different things I've learned over the years from different people that I used. The other thing was I credited the feedback team because they were, this Viz wouldn't have the special sauce, I think, and I don't think it would have made it into the top 10 without the feedback from the feedback initiative, because the changes that they had me make were just so impactful, especially looking at the before and after. They also, there's a lot of text in this Viz because I'm trying to tell a story here without writing a novel. And I basically had to be a ruthless editor of my own writing. Because, and the other thing is, because I love bears so much, I can go on and on about them. So I thought, man, I'm going to have to cut this text down. And so The other thing I had to do was when I built it, it wasn't originally for IronViz, and when the theme was announced, I had to spin this to kind of fit the theme a bit. But I reached out to Tableau and sent them an email and said, hey, do you think this fits the theme? And they responded back, oh, yeah, because this is a huge deal, especially with Fat Bear Week. So I got to thinking, yeah, Fat Bear Week. And then I think it was Dennis Cow. He said, hey, this is kind of like a reality show. So I said, oh, yeah, it is kind of like a reality show. So I kind of went and revised all my text based on trying to make it fit the theme. And I think it's really important, try to fit the theme as much as you can. Although the themes are really broad. So don't be afraid of it either. If you've got a viz out there, just, if you need to reword it or rework it a little bit, it's worth it. And then I included, I think, some personal stuff at the bottom of this. I really felt working with the data was really difficult, and I wanted to talk about that. I think that the data was hard for me because I love these animals so much, and when some of them wouldn't show up the next year, it was like, oh man, what happened? Did something happen to that bear? And they would come up listing as missing. And I kind of want to describe my feelings about trying to put the data set together. Sometimes I just have to stop and put it to the side because it would make me feel very sad, and I would have to put it away for a little bit. Another reason why it took so long to put the data together. And then I wanted to talk about the natural world a little bit and kind of my feelings. One of the things I learned in Yellowstone was nature's hard to watch sometimes. And I had some great quotes that I had always hung on to about working in the natural world that, I love this one about Richard Dawkins wrote about, it's not cruel, it's just indifferent. And it's hard for us as humans to kind of wrap our head around that. So the last thing I wanted to put down here was a bunch of links to sources that I had and cool things to help people learn more about these bears that maybe not have known much about them. So there's a link to the bear camps, to the Fat Bear Week site. There's a great ebook that the National Park Service has done about the bears. They try to update it. It's hard for them. They don't have a lot of funding and it's difficult. So on that note, I also wanted to make sure that people could participate. They could get involved by donating to Catline and helping them out. They could go to the National Park Service site and get more information particularly if they want to visit. And then how do you go about visiting Brooks River? Because it's not the easiest place to get to. And if somebody was just jazzed and just really wanted to go out there, wanted to make sure that they knew how to get there. But anyway, that's my viz, and I still feel so honored, and I never even thought about the competition aspect of it. I just really wanted to talk about my beautiful bears up at Brooks River, and I was just honestly floored when I made it into the top 10. I couldn't believe it. I got the email and I was just, what? No way. So it was actually really a great experience. I would encourage anyone who's kind of on the fence about doing IronViz, just do it. Just go for it. And, take a chance. Just put yourself out there because great things can happen. You can at least share a great story. And I go and look at all the IronViz entries every time because I just think they're amazing. And people have so many great things to say. And I really love Branden's viz as well. And I'm glad he was here today, too, to talk about his, because I learned some stuff from him today that I thought was pretty cool. So anyway, thank you all so much for having me. And get in there and go for it.
Yeah, this is so great. Thank you so much. I think it's so clear that you're so passionate about this. And I think that's just such a great advice. Like when you love something, it's so much easier to create an amazing visualization, I think, because it comes across. I definitely started reading this today and I got drawn right in and looked through the whole thing closely. So I mean, I feel like you gave a lot of tips, but I guess if you had like one piece of advice for anybody considering entering IronViz this year, what would it be?
Well, think about, what you're going to visualize and the story that you want to tell. And one piece of advice is if you've got an early start on some data, that's a good thing. Because in my case, with these field notes being so messy, it was really time consuming to put together the data set. If I had done this in the last, like 4 weeks or 6 weeks, that would have been incredibly difficult. I don't know if I could have gotten it done. So if you have a case like that where you're working with data similar to what I was looking at, maybe start, and if you can't get to it, then go ahead and if you have another viz you can submit, then great, but you kind of got to start early if you're working with data that's really messy.
Yeah. So true.
Maybe just save off and submit that one for the next year. I have another story I want to tell, but that data is even worse. And so that viz I'm going to hold off and submit for next year. So, because that's turned out to be quite the project.
So often the data takes way longer than everything
else. Yeah, exactly.
All right. I think, Lisa, are you up to close us out?
Yes. Can I have screen sharing? Thank you, Cherie. Sure. First of all, thank you to Sarah and Branden and Cherie. I think all three of you shed light on the process that is these qualifiers. Going through 2 of the top 10, you can now see kind of the level of detail and work that goes into it. If you are thinking about submitting a qualifier, this is just a kind of deeper dive into the judging criteria. I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is actually a link to one of Sarah Bartlett's blogs, but she has all of these listed in there as well. So you can kind of see the sub bullets that go into design, analysis, and storytelling. So, and like everyone has said, pick a topic you love and just do it. Win or learn, you can't lose is the tagline of IronViz, and it is incredibly true. You're going to gain something from entering the qualifiers. And our next meeting is going to be very spooky. We have planned in honor of our haunting season. It's going to be October 16th at noon Eastern, where Lucia Stefanuto will show us her visit of the day that is all about Halloween. And Anne-Sophie Pereira will showcase her viz about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which by chance was also a top 10 IronViz qualifier a few years ago. So fits this meeting's theme as well. We hope to see you there. I will sadly not be there. I'm going to be at Dreamforce. If you're going to be at Dreamforce, let me know. I would love to meet up and say, hey, I'll be hosting the analytics meetup. So hopefully I'll see you there, and everyone else will be here. And then if you're also just thinking about trying to go for a visit of the day for yourself, there are a few common threads that are typical among the vizzes that get selected. They're usually timely or topical. They highlight some kind of Tableau feature or have a Tableau trick in there. They spotlight on diversity and other cultures. There's some kind of cool chart, and they effectively communicate key insights and stories, and they look gorgeous. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to everyone who was able to come today. We really appreciate having you here, and we can't wait to see your IronViz qualifiers.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.